President Trump says he is ending trade talks with Canada. He said the United States has not had much success with Canada. He also said Canada would just pay tariffs instead of making a deal. Trump put heavy tariffs on Canadian goods, including a 10% tax on energy. Canada reacted strongly to this decision. It stopped relying on the United States as its only customer for natural gas. Instead, it started sending natural gas to countries in Asia that need more energy. On June 30, 2025, a ship called Gas Log Glasgow left Kitimat, British Columbia. It carried Canada's first shipment of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, directly to Asia. This was a big change in Canada's energy policy. For decades, almost all of Canada's natural gas exports went to the United States. The trade fight began when Canada introduced a digital services tax on big U.S. tech companies. Trump called the tax hostile and a betrayal of the U.S.-Canada trade partnership. In early 2025, he put a 25% tariff on most Canadian imports. He added a 10% tax on energy products. He also threatened to raise tariffs to 35% and ended trade talks with Canada. The United States had long depended on about 8.8 billion cubic feet of Canadian gas every day. In 2024, that gas was worth about $8 billion a year. For Canada, the tariffs showed the danger of depending on just one customer. Canada built the $40 billion LNG Canada terminal in Kitimat. This became the center of its plan to sell gas to Japan, South Korea, and China. It was an important move, but it also created new problems. The changes affected both countries. In Alberta and British Columbia, gas production and pipelines support tens of thousands of jobs. Uncertainty about U.S. demand and the high costs of switching to LNG exports led some companies to cut back operations. This caused job losses and less investment in traditional pipelines. Canada also faced new costs and supply problems while building LNG facilities and shipping routes to Asia. The Coastal Gas Link pipeline, a 670-kilometer link to the Kitimat terminal, became key to the plan. But it needed a lot of money and workers, taking resources away from other industries like manufacturing and farming. The trade war and the shift to LNG exports changed life in many Canadian towns. In small places like Fort St. John and Dawson Creek, many families depend on steady energy jobs. The move to LNG brought both hope and fear. Behind the headlines about trade fights and energy changes, there is a quieter story. It is the human cost paid by ordinary Canadians. In Alberta's gas fields, workers like Michael, a 42-year-old rig operator with 2 children, faced an uncertain future. For years, his job depended on steady U.S. demand for gas. When tariffs were added and pipeline exports were cut, his company had layoffs. Many other workers faced the same problem. Thousands lost jobs or had their hours reduced. Families had to cut spending, delay education plans, or move to find work. In Kitimat, the LNG terminal created new jobs, but also problems. The arrival of many construction workers pushed up rent prices and strained housing and local services. Longtime residents were forced out of their homes. Indigenous communities like the Haisla Nation, who own a share in the Coastal Gas Link pipeline, saw some economic benefits. But they also faced cultural and environmental trade-offs. The terminal's construction disturbed traditional lands. While partnerships with indigenous groups were seen as a step toward inclusion, not everyone felt the benefits were shared fairly. Some elders worried that younger people were leaving traditional practices to work in the energy sector. For Canadian consumers, the effects were clear. Tariffs made imported goods more expensive. Selling more gas to Asia reduced supply in Canada, which pushed up heating and electricity bills. In rural areas with harsh winters, families like the Thompsons in northern Ontario had to choose between heating their homes and buying food. Inflation and supply chain problems added more pressure. Small businesses struggled and some had to close. The trade war and Canada's LNG shift raise important questions. When leaders use tariffs as weapons, who really pays the price? Is it the politicians in Ottawa and Washington, or the workers and families caught in the middle? Canada's move to export LNG to Asia is a bold way to protect its economy from U.S. pressure. It could create jobs, strengthen the economy, and support cleaner energy. The Kitimat terminal uses hydroelectric power, making Canadian LNG one of the lowest emission options in the world. Partnerships with Indigenous groups set an example for development that includes local voices. But these gains come with costs. Building LNG projects, even with clean energy technology, still adds to fossil fuel use and challenges Canada's climate goals. The social effects, like job losses, higher living costs, and displaced communities, show how short-term profits can harm long-term stability. Globally, the risks are bigger. Canada's growing trade with Asia includes China, a major LNG buyer but also a country in conflict with Western interests. Some question if it is right to strengthen economic ties with such a country for the sake of security. And while LNG is cleaner than coal, its expansion could delay the move to renewable energy. The success of Canadian LNG depends on strict emission controls, preventing methane leaks, and keeping climate promises. If Canada fails to do this, its image as a climate leader could be damaged. The stories of workers like Michael, families like the Thompsons, and Indigenous communities facing change show a difficult truth. Ordinary people bear the greatest burden of trade wars and energy shifts. Canada's move to send LNG to Asia marks a turning point in its search for economic independence. But it also leaves behind lost jobs, struggling communities, and a debate over the costs of fossil fuel expansion. As countries compete for power, the human price grows. From Alberta's gas fields to freezing homes in Ontario. The question remains: can Canada build prosperity while protecting human dignity? Or will profit always come at the expense of those least able to afford it?